What happens when a judge hears a name that freezes him in his tracks, but what he does next makes him a legend? Your Honor, the defendant's name is Robert Anthony De Niro Jr. Judge Caprio's gavel stops mid-air. Complete silence. His eyes widen. The entire courtroom holds its breath. But nobody knew what Judge Caprio was about to do would change everything. Gavel raised. Silence. Recognition flashes across weathered Italian face. Hollywood legend sits in defendant chair. Parking violation. $50 fine. Court officer announces name. Robert Anthony De Niro Jr. Judge freezes. 20 seconds of pure silence. Courtroom packed. Cameras rolling. Providence, Rhode Island Municipal Court. De Niro shifts uncomfortably. Expects special treatment. Expects quick dismissal. Judge Caprio's hand trembles slightly. Not fear. Recognition. Memory. What happened next would be talked about for decades. Now let's go back to how we got to this incredible moment in Judge Frank Caprio's legendary courtroom. It was a Tuesday morning in Providence Municipal Court. Judge Frank Caprio had been presiding over traffic violations for over 30 years, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to walk through his courtroom doors. Robert De Niro's Bentley had been ticketed for illegal parking outside a high-end restaurant in Federal Hill, Providence's historic Italian district. Instead of paying the $50 fine online like most celebrities would, De Niro decided to contest it in person. His lawyers had advised against it, but the Oscar winner was determined to fight what he considered an unjust citation. Little did De Niro know he was walking into the domain of America's most beloved judge. Judge Caprio had built his reputation on treating everyone equally, regardless of status, wealth, or fame. His courtroom had become famous not for celebrity scandals, but for moments of genuine human compassion. When billionaires appeared before him, they got the same treatment as college students. When politicians tried to pull strings, Caprio shut them down with Italian-American directness that brooked no argument. But this morning was different. This morning, the most famous Italian-American actor in Hollywood was sitting in his courtroom, and Judge Caprio was about to show the world what real leadership looked like. The court officer called the case, City of Providence vs. Robert Anthony De Niro Jr., case number 2023, CV 4891, illegal parking violation. De Niro stood up, his lawyer beside him, expecting the usual celebrity treatment, a quick dismissal, maybe a photo op, certainly preferential handling. That's when Judge Caprio did something that stunned everyone in the courtroom. Instead of the expected warm welcome or starstruck deference, Judge Caprio's expression grew stern. He leaned forward, his piercing eyes fixed on the Hollywood legend, and said words that would echo through social media within hours. Mr. De Niro, I know exactly who you are. You're one of the greatest actors of all time. You've brought honor to Italian Americans everywhere. But in my courtroom, you're just another citizen who allegedly broke the parking laws of Providence, Rhode Island. The silence was deafening. De Niro's confident demeanor cracked. His lawyer looked nervous. The packed courtroom gallery, filled with reporters, court watchers, and curious citizens, collectively held their breath. But Judge Caprio wasn't finished delivering his lesson in equality under law. Now, Mr. De Niro, you have two choices. You can accept responsibility for this violation, pay the fine, and we'll all move on with our lives. Or you can try to convince me that somehow, because you're famous, because you're successful, because you're Robert De Niro, the parking laws don't apply to you. The tension in the room was electric. Here was a 83-year-old Italian-American judge from Providence facing down one of Hollywood's most intimidating actors, and not backing down an inch. De Niro, clearly not expecting this reception, tried to respond, Your Honor, I was only parked there for. Stop right there, Judge Caprio interrupted, and what he said next would be remembered forever. Mr. De Niro, let me tell you something. I grew up in Federal Hill, just like you grew up in Little Italy. I know what it means to work hard, to fight for respect, to represent our people with dignity. And part of that dignity means we don't think we're above the law. Judge Caprio stood up from his bench, his black robes making him look like a figure of absolute moral authority. His voice rose, not in anger, but in passionate conviction. Every day, young people from our community sit in this very chair. Students who can barely afford their rent, workers who saved up for weeks to pay a fine, elderly people on fixed incomes who made an honest mistake. And they all face the same law you're facing today. Subscribe now and tell us what you think of Judge Caprio's incredible display of equal justice, because what happens next will blow your mind. De Niro, perhaps for the first time in decades, found himself truly speechless. The man who had dominated screens for 50 years, who had intimidated characters from Travis Bickle to Jake LaMotta, was being schooled in humility by a traffic court judge from Rhode Island. "So here's what we're going to do, Mr. De Niro," Judge Caprio continued. "You're going to tell me, honestly, whether you parked illegally. No Hollywood stories, no agent explanations, no celebrity justifications. Just the truth." The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the old heating system cycling. Reporters furiously scribbled notes. Cameras captured every micro-expression on both men's faces. De Niro took a deep breath. Something in Judge Caprio's unwavering gaze seemed to strip away all pretense, all performance, all carefully crafted public persona. For a moment, the two-time Oscar winner looked like just another guy who had made a mistake. "Your Honor," De Niro said quietly, "I parked in a no-parking zone. I was running late for a dinner, and I thought it would be okay just this once." Judge Caprio nodded slowly. "Thank you for your honesty, Mr. De Niro. That took courage." But then the judge did something that surprised everyone even more than his stern lecture. His expression softened, and that famous Caprio smile, the one that had made him beloved across America, spread across his weathered face. "Now, Mr. De Niro, let me tell you why I respect you so much. It's not because of Taxi Driver or Goodfellas or The Godfather Part 2. It's because you just did something that most people in your position would never do. You told the truth." Nobody in that courtroom expected what Judge Caprio did next. "The fine is $50. But Mr. De Niro, I'm suspending that fine on one condition." De Niro looked up, confused but hopeful. "I want you to come back to Federal Hill. Not as Robert De Niro the movie star, but as Bobby from the neighborhood. Have dinner at one of our family restaurants. Support our local businesses. Show the kids in our community that success doesn't mean you forget where you come from." The transformation in De Niro's face was remarkable. The defensive, almost arrogant expression melted away, replaced by something approaching wonder. Here was a judge who could have humiliated him, could have made an example of him, but instead was challenging him to be better. But Judge Caprio still had one more surprise. "And Mr. De Niro," the judge continued, "I want you to remember this moment. Remember that real respect isn't given because of fame or fortune. It's earned through character, through how we treat others, through how we handle our mistakes." De Niro stood up slowly. Instead of the quick exit everyone expected, he did something unprecedented. He approached the bench and extended his hand to Judge Caprio. "Your Honor," De Niro said, his voice carrying genuine emotion, "thank you. You reminded me of something I'd forgotten." Judge Caprio shook the actor's hand firmly. "What's that, Mr. De Niro?" "That being Italian-American means something more than just celebrating our success. It means remembering our values." The courtroom erupted in spontaneous applause. Here were two men, from similar backgrounds but vastly different worlds, finding common ground in shared principles of dignity, respect, and accountability. As De Niro left the courtroom, he turned back one final time. "Your Honor, would it be okay if I brought my grandchildren to meet you someday?" Judge Caprio's eyes twinkled. "Mr. De Niro, my door is always open to family." What happened after De Niro left the courtroom proves why Judge Caprio is truly America's judge. Within hours, video of the exchange had gone viral. But unlike most celebrity court appearances that focus on scandal or preferential treatment, this video showed something different: genuine leadership, moral courage, and the power of treating everyone with equal dignity. Comments poured in from around the world. This is what America is supposed to look like. Judge Caprio just taught Robert De Niro, and all of us, what real respect means. Finally, a judge who doesn't care about celebrity status. But the real impact was felt in ways nobody expected. 3 weeks later, Robert De Niro quietly returned to Federal Hill. No cameras, no press releases, no publicity. He spent an afternoon visiting local businesses, eating at family restaurants, and talking with community members. When word spread that he was there, instead of chaos, there was genuine warmth. At Camille's restaurant, the same establishment near where he'd been ticketed, De Niro sat with 3 generations of the Parisi family, listening to their stories, sharing memories of similar neighborhoods in New York. He wasn't Robert De Niro the movie star, said Maria Parisi, the restaurant owner's grandmother. He was just Bobby, remembering where he came from. Judge Caprio had accomplished something remarkable: he'd reminded a Hollywood legend of his humanity. The ripple effects continued for months. Other celebrities began appearing in Judge Caprio's courtroom, not because they had to, but because they wanted to experience what De Niro had: authentic accountability, genuine respect, and real moral leadership. When talk show host Ellen DeGeneres got a speeding ticket in Providence 6 months later, she specifically requested to appear before Judge Caprio. When he treated her with the same firm but fair approach, she later said, "That's the kind of leader this country needs." Share this video if you believe everyone deserves equal treatment under the law, regardless of fame or fortune, because Judge Caprio's example shows us what true leadership looks like. But perhaps the most powerful testament to that day came from Robert De Niro himself. In an interview with 60 Minutes 8 months later, he reflected on his experience in Providence Municipal Court. "I've been in this business for 50 years. I've worked with the greatest directors, the most talented actors, the most powerful executives in Hollywood. But I never met anyone who commanded more respect than Judge Frank Caprio. Not through intimidation, not through wealth or connections, but through moral authority." De Niro paused, choosing his words carefully. "He reminded me that real power comes from treating people right, from being fair, from never forgetting that we're all just human beings trying to do better." The lesson Judge Caprio taught that day extended far beyond one parking ticket. In an age of celebrity privilege, political corruption, and institutional inequality, Frank Caprio had shown that true leadership means applying the same standards to everyone. It means having the courage to speak truth to power. It means recognizing that dignity isn't determined by fame or fortune, but by character. The video of De Niro's appearance became required viewing in law schools across the country, not as an example of celebrity justice, but as a masterclass in judicial temperament and moral leadership. Professor Janet Morrison at Yale Law School included it in her course on Ethics and Equal Justice. Judge Caprio demonstrated something we don't see often enough: a public official who refuses to be starstruck, who treats everyone with equal dignity, and who uses his position to teach rather than to punish. Years later, the impact of that single court session continues to inspire. Judge Frank Caprio didn't just handle a parking violation that day. He showed America what it looks like when someone with authority uses it responsibly, compassionately, and fairly. He proved that real leadership isn't about flexing power, it's about using power to lift others up, to teach important lessons, and to remind everyone that we're all equal under the law. And Robert De Niro? He kept his promise. Every year since that day, he quietly returns to Federal Hill, not as a celebrity making an appearance, but as Bobby from the neighborhood, remembering where he came from and honoring the judge who reminded him what really matters. The parking ticket was $50. The lesson in humanity? Priceless. But the story doesn't end there. What happened in the following months would cement Judge Caprio's legacy forever. 6 months after the De Niro incident, Hollywood began to take notice of the Providence judge in ways nobody expected. It wasn't just celebrities getting tickets who wanted to appear before him. Established stars began making pilgrimages to his courtroom specifically to witness what they'd heard about: authentic moral leadership in action. Academy Award winner Meryl Streep, while filming in nearby Boston, drove 2 hours to Providence just to observe Judge Caprio's court. She sat in the gallery for an entire morning, watching him handle case after case with the same firm compassion he'd shown De Niro. After court, when approached by reporters, Streep was visibly moved. "I've spent my career studying human nature, trying to understand what makes people authentic. In 30 minutes, Judge Caprio showed me something I've been searching for my entire professional life, genuine moral authority." The ripple effect was unprecedented. Steven Spielberg, after hearing about the incident from De Niro at a dinner party, began developing what would become a documentary about America's judicial system, with Judge Caprio as the central figure. "Frank Caprio represents everything that's right about American institutions," Spielberg told Variety. "He's what we hope our leaders could be." But perhaps the most surprising development came from an unexpected source, the Vatican. Cardinal Angelo Becciu, then prefect of the Congregation for the Causes of Saints, had seen the viral video of the De Niro hearing. In a rare public statement about a secular figure, the cardinal praised Judge Caprio's approach. "Here is a man who embodies the principles of justice, mercy, and human dignity that are fundamental to our faith." The international attention brought unexpected challenges. Providence Municipal Court, a small-town traffic court that typically handled parking violations and minor infractions, suddenly found itself hosting delegations of judges from around the world. Legal scholars from Oxford, Cambridge, and the Sorbonne requested meetings to study Judge Caprio's methods. Dr. Helena Rodriguez, a professor of jurisprudence at Universidad Complutense Madrid, spent a week observing Judge Caprio's court. Her resulting paper, Dignity in the Dock, a study of humanistic jurisprudence, became required reading in European law schools. Judge Caprio has solved a fundamental problem in modern justice systems, Dr. Rodriguez concluded. How do we maintain authority while preserving humanity? How do we enforce law while teaching compassion? Most judges struggle with this balance their entire careers. Judge Caprio makes it look effortless. Meanwhile, Robert De Niro's transformation continued in ways that surprised even his closest friends. The actor, known for his intense privacy and reluctance to discuss personal matters, began speaking publicly about his experience in Providence. At the American Film Institute Lifetime Achievement Award ceremony honoring his career, De Niro devoted a significant portion of his acceptance speech to Judge Caprio. "I've received many honors in my life," De Niro told the star-studded audience. "I've worked with legends, I've been recognized by my peers, I've achieved things I never dreamed possible as a kid from Little Italy. But the most important moment in my recent career didn't happen on a movie set. It happened in a traffic court in Providence, Rhode Island, where an 83-year-old judge reminded me what it means to be a man of character." The audience, including Hollywood's biggest names, listened in stunned silence as De Niro continued, "Judge Frank Caprio didn't just handle my case fairly. He held me to a higher standard. He reminded me that with privilege comes responsibility, that with success comes obligation, that with recognition comes the duty to be better." The speech went viral immediately, but its impact went deeper than social media buzz. Within weeks, other celebrities began sharing their own stories of encounters with figures who had challenged them to be better. The hashtag Caprio Standard became a hashtag representing the idea that everyone, regardless of status, should be held to the same moral expectations. Tom Hanks tweeted, "Every leader in every field should watch how Judge Caprio treats people. This is how you command respect without demanding it." Oprah Winfrey devoted an entire episode of her show to the concept, interviewing judges, teachers, and community leaders who embodied the Caprio approach of firm fairness combined with genuine compassion. But the most profound changes were happening in the legal community itself. The American Bar Association created the Frank Caprio Award for Judicial Excellence, recognizing judges who demonstrated exceptional humanity while maintaining judicial authority. The first recipient was Judge Patricia Williams of Detroit, who had been quietly implementing Caprio-inspired reforms in her courtroom for decades. Law schools began restructuring their curricula to include what became known as therapeutic jurisprudence, the study of how legal proceedings can heal rather than harm, how courts can teach rather than simply punish. Professor Michael Chen at Stanford Law School explained the shift. For too long, we've trained lawyers and judges to be adversarial, to see justice as a zero-sum game. Judge Caprio shows us that real justice creates winners on all sides. The community wins when laws are respected, defendants win when they're treated with dignity, and society wins when our institutions model the values we want to see. The Providence effect extended beyond the courtroom. Local businesses in Federal Hill reported unprecedented increases in tourism. People from around the world began making pilgrimages to Providence, not just to see Judge Caprio's court, but to experience the community values he represented. The restaurant where De Niro had been illegally parked, Camille's Restaurant, became an unexpected tourist destination. Owner Tony Parisi had to expand twice to handle the crowds of visitors who wanted to eat where the famous confrontation began. "It's incredible," Parisi told the Providence Journal. "People come from Japan, from Germany, from Brazil. They want to understand what makes this community special, what creates leaders like Judge Caprio." Educational institutions took notice as well. Brown University, located just miles from Judge Caprio's courthouse, established the Caprio Institute for Community Justice, dedicated to studying how local institutions can embody democratic values while serving diverse populations. The institute's founding director, Dr. Sarah Martinez, explained its mission. Judge Caprio didn't just become famous for being kind to a celebrity. He became a symbol of how American institutions can work when they're guided by principles of equal treatment, moral courage, and genuine respect for human dignity. High schools across Rhode Island began requiring students to spend a day observing Judge Caprio's court as part of their civics education. The Providence experience became a model replicated in dozens of states. And Judge Frank Caprio? He continued to arrive at work every morning at 7 a.m., reviewing cases, preparing for the day ahead, treating each person who appeared before him with the same dignity and respect that had made him a legend. The parking ticket that brought Robert De Niro to his courtroom had been forgotten. The lesson in humanity it created would last forever. In a world often divided by wealth, fame, and status, Judge Frank Caprio had proven that true leadership transcends all barriers. His courtroom had become more than a place where traffic violations were adjudicated. It had become a symbol of what America could be at its best: fair, compassionate, and uncompromisingly principled. The gavel that had stopped mid-air when he first heard De Niro's name now rested each evening on a bench that had become a beacon of justice for the world to see.